other things, but not information. The laws of nature, which we will see later on, are valid for this definition of information. Now let me give another example. Here you see once again a code system, or maybe not. We cannot make the decision, is it a code system or not. But if we can decode it, then we are sure it's information. For example, here, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And the earth were empty, and it was dark over the deep, and the Holy Ghost hovered over the water, and God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God said, "The light is good." And God separated the light from the darkness and called the light day and the darkness night. So we had day and night the first day. You see, it's a good code system for describing the Bible. And my idea is, if someone would translate the complete Bible using this code system, so we would have an international Bible. You can read it in Germany, you can read it in Japan, and all are using the same code, and everybody understands the right meaning. Maybe someone will start to translate. Now let me come to the laws of nature about information. There are 4 laws of nature about information. Let me come to the first law. Information is a non-material entity, and I wrote here a fundamental entity, because information we find in all living systems. There's no exception. And not a property of matter. That's very important. It is not possible to bring the information definition on the matter level. That is impossible. So we see we have a new entity in the non-material area. Let me come to the next one. Any material, such as physical or chemical processes, cannot create something non-material. We know this from in nature and all places. From an apple tree, you cannot get cherries also. Always the same. And here you can see it on the level of non-material entities. A non-material entity never can come from a material area. It's impossible. That's what we observe, what we see in thousands of processes. That's what when we analyze it. Now we come to the third law of nature. Information cannot originate in statistical processes. That's impossible. Evolutionists believe it, but only believe it. They cannot show it. They have never shown a process that if we have matter alone, that after time in the matter we find also information. It could never shown in no place of the world. If information cannot originate in statistical processes, then the question is, what is the way of origin of information? That is what the fourth law tells us. Information can only be generated by an intelligent sender. That's what we observe in all places. Each program for a computer needs a programmer who wrote down the lines for the program. Each book needs an author, and so on. we can, once again, we can show this. I've shown you the definition of information by the 4 levels. But if we observe the systems, then we can say, in all cases, we need a sender for creating the information, and always the information will be transferred to a recipient. That's what we in the systems observe. Now let me come to 4a. It is a derived law. There can be no new information without an intelligent sender. And for B, any given chain of information can be traced back to an intelligent source. For example, if you drive a car and you switch on your radio, you will get the news radio. What is the source of this information? Is it your instrument in the car? Of course not. If you go back this chain of information transfer, you will find in the beginning an author who gave the information. Information requires a material medium for storage and transmission. We find information in technical systems and also in all biological systems. That is very important. Now let's have a look to the biological systems. And since the second half of the last century, we are familiar that the information is stored in the DNA molecules. In the DNA molecules you find 4 letters. It is an alphabet with only 4 letters. In the computers we have an alphabet of 2 letters, 0 and 1. Here we have 4 letters. I have analyzed this system and could show that this is the best code what could be done for the living systems. In this book, what we have about information, it is explained in more details. Here on the left side of the genetic code, you see the amino acids, and 3 of the amino acids represent or 3 letters of this genetic alphabet are coding 1 amino acid. On this picture, you see once again the structure of the DNA molecule. You see in this way, and this is the highest density of information what we know. We don't know any other system which has the same density of information than we find here. Here, for example, you see the human insulin and all the amino acids which are contained in 1 molecule, and you see there are 2 chains, and we see 51 elements here. Now I think we are familiar with what information is. We understand information we find in all living systems, no exception. All living systems can work with information, and information is the necessary detail of each living system. If we would take away the information from a living system, then this living system is dead. Now let me come to the conclusions. First conclusion, what we can make from the laws of nature about information. Since the DNA code of all life forms is clearly within the definition domain of information, we can conclude there must be a sender. We said there is a law of nature which says each information needs an author. And so we, in our term, we say the living systems need a sender, the sender of information. Why? Because information cannot create in matter alone, impossible. So it needs a sender. If we say there is a sender necessary, so we have by that way refuted the idea of atheism. Atheism is a wrong idea. And you see the character of laws of nature, they can refute an idea, a speculation or a theory or whatever we are saying. The laws of nature has the power to refute a false system. And so we see this law of nature allows us to say the idea of atheism is false. Now, here on this picture, you see the levels of information in living systems. Statistic is not here because it's not important in our case. And above you see the word sender. But you see in this red area, my question, who is this sender? Interesting question. At the moment, we only can say this, the sender, there must be a sender. That is the first conclusion what we could find. Now let's go further. Since the density and complexity of the DNA encoded information is billions of times greater than man's present technology, we conclude the sender must be supremely intelligent. That is right. All the processes which are programmed in the living systems, we are not able to do the same. Nobody can write such a program.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
We still have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay, fine. So you understand, it's very complex. When I had a talk at a university in Germany, and this moment when I spoke about this, a student asked me, I know what you want to say. You will say there must be a God. Oh, I say, congratulations, very good conclusion. Of course, I wanted to say there is a God. I spoke only from the sender, but now she said there must be a God. Okay. But then she said, my question is another one. Please tell me who gave God this information that he is able to make the programs. Oh, in this moment I said, there is another God, the second God, and he has more information than God. I call him the overgod. And the overgod gave the information to God, and God created everything. But now we see it needs another question, and there comes another question. Who gave the information to the overgod? Oh, no problem. We assume a third God, the overgod, and this overgod has more information than the overgod, and so it is possible. But you see, we produce many questions, and at the end we need an infinite number of gods in this idea, okay? An infinite number. But what can we say about the last one? From the mathematical viewpoint, we cannot say the last one, but I do it in this moment. From the last one, we can say he must have all information which is possible. About today, about yesterday, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, also in future. All information has this last God. But in science, always we do the following. If we have two models which are equivalent, we always use the simpler one. But it must be equivalent. And what is the equivalent model in this case? Now we say there is only one God, but this one God must have all information. Or we can say, this God must be omniscient. Okay? You see, we come to a next point that we can say the sender must be omniscient, infinite in intelligence and information. If this God has all information now, yesterday, 1,000 years ago, and also back in eternity, so also in future, also in eternity, then we can conclude, then this God must be eternal. Then it is possible. And so there's another conclusion, but we can more say the sender must be eternal. Now we come to the next conclusion. We can do it in the same way about the power, and if we analyze it, and we can say the sender must be omnipotent. I do not explain this. This is in the same way as I have shown for the information. You see, we have more information. Now there must be a sender. The sender must be omniscient. The sender must be omnipotent. Next one is, since information is a non-material fundamental entity and cannot originate from material entities, we conclude the sender must have a non-material component. Now we go to the Bible and compare what we found from the scientific viewpoint, and we will see it comes together. We came to the conclusion there must be a sender, or we can say there must be a God, and that's what we read in Psalm 14:1. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. And the other things what we could find by analyzing the laws of nature about information, what you see in the left side, we find also